Welcome, everyone, to Buddha's Center. It's so wonderful to be here tonight to discuss Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, the Source of All My Good. We've had a few months off, and everybody who's been saying prayers for Lori, I really appreciate it. She's had now 2 brain surgeries, and she's doing okay. But any continued prayers that you could do for her longevity and for her removal of obstacles and any of the defects that are kind of lingering, we would really appreciate. So I just want to say thank you for everyone who's been doing prayers. And let's get started. I've been very eager to talk about the Lam Rim and about the Foundation of All Good Qualities and the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment again. And we're going to start with just Thursdays for now. And eventually we'll get the second day of Sunday going again if we can. I'm involved with an Alanda Master's course and a diploma course and a couple of things. And unfortunately, there's a 4-hour teaching up right until, and it could go on after 10 o'clock in the morning that I have to take as part of my curriculum. So I don't think it's really realistic to, after that much of, it's all one continuous teaching. It's not the 2 separate classes like it was before where I could listen to it later. It's a continuous teaching. So we're going to table Sundays for now, just letting everybody know. But we will be on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, discussing the Foundation of All Good Qualities. And everybody knows that that's Lama Tsongkhapa's very short poem that encompasses all of the stages of the path to enlightenment within it. We see all of the teachings from the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment in it. We see all of the teachings from the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Tantric Path to Enlightenment in it. So it's just such a beautiful text, and we'll be drawing from those various other texts as we go through the Foundation of All Good Qualities, and as we have been doing, in order to clarify these beautiful stanzas that we find in this very short poem, as I said, that you start to unpack each and every one of the stanzas, and the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, and the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity, both the perfection and tantric vehicles. You start to unpack these stanzas and see how rich they are and see how much meaning there is in them. We start to really feel so blessed to be able to have all of the various lineages that we talk about, the extensive deeds and the profound view lineage and the lineage of blessings that trickle down into this incredible Lam Rim tradition, starting with, in terms of the lamp for the path to enlightenment, with Lord Atisha, and then being passed down to Drone Tompa. And then we have such a rich tradition of the 3 different Kadampa traditions, and then these incredible Lam Rim texts written by the, Panchen Lozan Chuji Jetson and Panchen, the Panchen Lamas, Panchen Lozan Chuni. And then Pobunka Rinpoche's the liberation in the palm of your hand, and Gomchen Ngawan Drapa, and the 3rd Dalai Lama, and the 5th Dalai Lama's text. We just have such a rich tradition, and the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment with Lama Tsongkhapa, and the medium stages of the Path to Enlightenment, and the Lam Rim Duden, the abbreviated stages of the Path to Enlightenment. We just have so many texts when we look at these incredible 8 Lam Rim texts, plus, all of the other beautiful commentaries that we have, even in the English tradition, to be able to elucidate what the meaning of Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment is. And that's, then looking at some of the other traditions, being able to see Gampopa's jeweled ornament for liberation, and being able to look at the Longchenpa's teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment. We're really so fortunate. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, the Zatupatra Rinpoche's teaching, the words of my perfect teacher. We find such a rich Lam Rim tradition, in all of these various sects of the Nyingma, Kagyu, Sakya, and Gelug within Tibetan Buddhism, and Sakya Pandita and Sakya Randawa, and so forth. We find such a rich tradition within these different sects of Tibetan Buddhism that we're really should feel like the most fortunate beings in the universe to be able to have within our language these teachings that are so precious and that are so rare. And that when we look at the 8 billion beings on Earth, and we think about how many of them have access to these teachings? How many of them have interest in these teachings? How many of them know that these teachings are the door to all of our, happiness? They're the way that we can be free from suffering forever. They're the way that we can have complete bliss forever and be able to be of complete benefit to ourselves and all sentient beings forever. And how many people have this incredible gift that we've been given so freely by these immensely kind beings, these immensely generous beings like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Kensur Geshe Wandak and Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Demolocha Rinpoche, these incredible giants of logic and reasoning, the holders of Nalanda tradition, the holders of Nagarjuna's and Asanga's Dharma, and the holders of these traditions that are so, so beautiful and clear, they were so able to elucidate and have such an impact on our minds if we allow them to. If we allow our minds to start to be penetrated by the teaching shared in common with beings of small, medium, and medium capacity and the teachings for beings of great capacity, our minds will start to work like the minds of these masters that we've come in contact with, which will then mean that all phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. If we do the same thing that our precious teachers did, if we engage in the same practices that they did, if we put the same information in our minds that they did, if we have the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation like they did, then all functioning things have causes. All effects have causes. Effects are concordant with their causes. So if we engage in the causes to be able to create a mind like our teachers, then our mind will start to behave like our teachers' minds, and we'll be able to see what it would be like to cherish others more than ourselves, and be able to see how beautiful and how peaceful a mind can be once it starts to be relieved a little bit of the self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude. So before I say anything else, let me say this. Laike dan ludan no jinke, drubon da dan mi ke nandan. Okay, I don't have all the Tibetan. I apologize. In the language of gods and humans and Nagas and Yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, in all the languages of all realms of all sentient beings, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. So now I'm imagining now that I'm able to speak the Dharma in the language of all sentient beings. I'm imagining that everything that I'm proclaiming is able to be understood. I'm imagining this. I know that I don't have these abilities, but the Buddha has this ability. And by imagining that I have this ability, I'm setting imprints in my mind to eventually ripen into the state of a being that will actually be able to do it. So I'm imagining that I'm able to speak in the language of all beings, because the Buddha's special quality of speech is that he's able to utter, if all sentient beings were to ask a question in all of their individual languages, the Buddha could utter one response and it would answer all of their questions in their own individual languages. So when I say in the language of all these different types of beings, I shall proclaim the Dharma, it means just that, because that's what the Buddha is able to do. And the Buddha is only able to teach the truth of suchness to sentient beings. The Buddha is not able to wash away negativities, take away suffering with hands, or transfer his realizations in any way. The Buddha is able to teach the truth of the Dharma, and the Buddha is the most capable being because of having perfect love and compassion, perfect wisdom, perfect power, perfect skillful means, an omniscient mind that knows exactly what each sentient being needs at every single moment in order for him or her to evolve to the next level of spiritual development that they need to do in order to become Buddhas themselves. So this is the kind of state of being of complete freedom from suffering and bliss that we want to achieve, and we'll have these capabilities of helping all sentient beings in a complete way once we do so. And as we learn how to become better and better at this, as we become in a contrived way start to think about, being able to, help all sentient beings and bring all sentient beings into the teaching and into our practice when we're doing it, and into our refuge prayer, and with us when we make prostrations, in order to really develop such a large, massive amount of virtue that's in relation to all sentient beings, because we know that our bliss will only be at its maximum kind of peak if we put every single sentient being, leaving none aside, before our own needs. If we're able to learn to cherish and love them the same way that a mother and a father look at their child right after they're born and say, I will do anything for you. And that amount of bliss that they have at that moment, that I've just heard testimonials of from parents where they have this experience, and it's just a moment of an experience of cherishing someone more than yourself in such an extreme way that it causes that kind of immense bliss to take place that the Buddha has multiplied times every single sentient being. And that's why we can't even imagine the amount of bliss that Buddha has, because we have these little kind of blips of what we think of as bliss happen in our lives, and we equate them as the most incredible things that have ever happened. But the Buddha has that experience multiplied times every single sentient being in the universe, 24/7 forever. And this is something that we'll learn about more and more and more as we understand the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude and the benefits of cherishing others. So now we've been given this precious gift of the Dharma that's so incredible and so rare. And we have this human basis right now where we've met with the Dharma, but it's very difficult to achieve this human basis, and it's easily lost. And if we don't take advantage of and take its essence right now, then we don't know when we're going to have another opportunity to do this again. So let's use each moment of this human basis to put as much power into each of the moments, so that those moments are planted in our continuum with so much power that they catapult us through the various paths of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning as quickly as possible, so we can reach that state where we have complete freedom from suffering and we have complete bliss at all times, and we fulfilled the needs of ourselves and others, and have the ability to truly do so, not in imagination, but in reality, because the Buddha has this incredible ability to be able to throw bodies out, and as many bodies as are necessary to help sentient beings. And the Buddha does this from the Dharmakaya, and then the Buddha then emanates these bodies of enjoyment to the Ogmin, to this pure land where the Arya Bodhisattvas are, and this pure enjoyment body, and teaches the Arya Bodhisattvas the Mahayana Dharma, while also emanating bodies to folks like myself and you, if you're who you appear to be as ordinary beings, in order to intervene in ways to show us the truth of suchness. So we're so fortunate that the Buddha has all of these qualities to be able to help beings in every single realm, at every single level. Even the 10th ground bodhisattvas still have the appearance of true existence that they're working to get rid of. There's imprints throwing still these kind of latent predispositions, throwing the appearance of true existence still out of their minds, and they still need the help to be able to get rid of those final obstructions to omniscience, to be able to reach that state of Buddhahood. So when we say we bring all sentient beings here, let's imagine that we're bringing every single sentient being here, meaning any being that's not a Buddha. Sentient beings are not Buddhas, and then Buddhas are not sentient beings. So there's a line of demarcation of the 10th Bodhisattva ground between these two concepts of beings. And a Buddha is the only one who's gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, and has this perfect wisdom, love, and compassion and power that surpasses those of all beings in the universe. And the hearers and solitary realizers in the abiding nirvana have gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions, but they still have this kind of glaze over reality when they have to see conventional truth, and it appears still as truly established, because the obstructions to omniscience aren't gotten rid of. The subtle self-cherishing attitude is still there. So we see the problem with even the subtlest form of the self-cherishing attitude. So let's start to try to beat up this attitude that sees others as lower than us, as not as important as us. Let's see that we're receiving this pure Dharma right now from the lineage of Khenser Geshe Wandak and Khenser Pema Jetson and Ling Rinpoche and Trijung Rinpoche, etc., all the way through the Nalanda Pandits, all the way to Buddha Shakyamuni. We're receiving this freely. Rinpoche freely gave us these teachings. So generally, we think we're the most important people in the world. We think that our needs are more important than others, and we cherish ourselves more than others. And we wouldn't think of even inviting every being in the universe to partake in a gift that we had received. Generally, when we receive a gift, we lock it in a safe. We say that it's ours. We polish it, depending on what it is. And we don't just share it with every being in the universe as a rule. It's our conditioning. It's our self-grasping ignorance that brings about this self-cherishing attitude. These two work together. And then I say, I'm more important than you. I will push away anything I don't like and fight it. And I will run at and grab at anything that I want because of attachment, because I believe that there's something that exists within the object that is worthy of my attachment, because I've decided it truly exists. And I have an inappropriate attention, a conceptuality that then says, oh, well, if it truly exists, let me think about that object over there. And then the thing that I desire and I find good, I become attached to. The thing that I dislike, I push away and I have aversion towards. And then there's all these neutral things that I just grasp at as being inherently existent. So I have this kind of tendency to be like this. So anyway, so what we're going to do now, to not go on and on and on, is we're going to imagine that we bring every single sentient being in the universe here to share this experience of learning Lama Tsongkhapa's Dharma, learning Lord Atisha's Dharma, learning the Nalanda Pandit's Dharma, learning Buddha Shakyamuni's Dharma, learning the Kanjur, the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, the Tanjur, the authentic Indian commentaries, and all these beautiful lineages. And I just want to really, please let this impact your mind, that we have this incredible opportunity that so many don't. Now we'll just share that with them. Imagine that every single sentient being in the universe is brought here. Rely upon your meditations that we've gone over on bodhicitta when you do things like this, a 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, where we recognize first we have a pre-step of equanimity, and then we build this ground where we recognize that friends, enemies, and neutrals all have this kind of equal status, because since beginningless time, our friends have been neutrals and enemies, our neutrals have been friends and enemies, and our enemies have been friends and neutrals. So since beginningless time, if we've had equally all these relationships with everyone, we should be equally willing to be as angry at or love or be neutrally careless towards each person that we meet. So we see that that isn't the kind of way that makes sense. And we see that since beginningless time, we've had the kind of relationship that we've had with the person that we care about so much, so in our lives. Whoever that is, our mother, our father, our sister, our brother, our husband, our wife, whoever fills that role, we look at them and say, and we look at someone we dislike, and we say, I have cared about this person that I dislike, and they've cared for me just as much as this person that I care about now cares for me and I love. And the person that cares for me now that I love previously held this position of person I found troublesome in a previous life. So clinging at having attachment towards one, or throwing away strangers, or having aversion towards enemies isn't really a realistic concept when we look at the sense of beginningless time, and that our consciousness has no beginning, and these relationships that we've had with all sentient beings have had no beginning either. So when we do mathematically, we see that we've had all these varying situations. So this is the pre-step that we think about that starts to get our mind ready to be equally willing to benefit others. And then we say all sentient beings have been our mothers, or have been a role in our lives of someone who we find who would be willing to do anything for us, take care of us when we're vulnerable. So we say all sentient beings have been our mothers. We'll use the title mother for that being, and most cases, this is the person that beings relate to as a nurturing, caring, most loving person in their lives, mother or father or something like this. But whoever that person is, we're going to label them mother. And then remembering their kindness, remembering that, if every single sentient being has been, in this role of such intense caring for me when I was so vulnerable, it's incredible. I think about all the ways that I've been vulnerable and cared for, and I remember that every single sentient being in the universe has done this for me. I recognize that there isn't an ant, there isn't a bird that flies by, there isn't a being in the hell realm that I can't even imagine, there isn't a God, there isn't a formless realm being, there isn't any kind of being in the universe, and there's such a diverse amount of beings I can't even imagine that hasn't been so kind to me. So we start to build up this incredible feeling where we recognize how kind these sentient beings have been. And then that catapults us into this step of, wishing to repay this kindness. And somehow I'm going to do it. I want to repay this kindness and somehow. And we're here tonight understanding that the things of samsara, all contaminated things of the nature of suffering. So maybe I could give, somebody who needs a blanket, which is so wonderful and is such incredible generosity, but that's a contaminated happiness. That's a form of suffering I'm giving them within cyclic existence. I know it sounds so crazy, but when we start to think about the way we look at happiness and samsara, we start to recognize that it's not really happiness when we look at the suffering of change. The suffering of suffering we understand, and we want to stop that right away, but we usually think we can stop the suffering of suffering with suffering. We think that we can give some sort of contaminated happiness, and that's going to fix everything, but that's actually suffering itself also. So we recognize, what could I do? If I wanted to repay the kindness of somebody who was willing to take care of me when I was so vulnerable and would do anything for me, what would it feel like? What would it be like if I'd be willing to do anything for them? What am I willing to do for myself? I want to be out of samsara. I want to be a Buddha. So then I should be thinking in those terms of repaying their kindness and kind of leave it there for a moment, because then we meditate on this love that wishes that they have happiness. So we say, oh, we want you to have happiness and the causes of happiness, this love through the force of attraction. It's called attraction because we've meditated on these first 3 steps and now become like a magnet to all sentient beings because we want to repay their kindness. And what would it be like? What would a state they'd be in that we'd say, oh, we've repaid their kindness? It would be a state of happiness where they had happiness and the causes of happiness. So we say, I want all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then we say, I want them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And we get this attitude of great compassion. And we've built it up to the strength because of this wishing to repay their kindness step that we've taken and said, I'm going to repay their kindness, that this great compassion has within it the mental basis to produce the extraordinary attitude of altruism. Is so important to me that I start to really make this clear to everyone, that it's like a musical piece that builds up and builds up and builds up to the point where you couldn't imagine doing anything but becoming a Buddha, because there's nothing else to do. There is nothing else worthwhile besides doing whatever it takes to become a Buddha. So this meditation should be powerful. This meditation should be like Kensur Geshe Wandak would explain it, with such power in the room. And you walked into the room and you knew there was a being there who was realized. This is what we're talking about. It builds up to the point where I will take upon myself the task of freeing every single sentient being from suffering. I will take upon the task myself, this job of bringing all sentient beings to a state of happiness where they only have the causes of happiness. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this upon myself, this task, because I've built this up. I've cognitively convinced myself and created a mind that says this must be done. And if this must be done, is this realistic or not? Can I do it? Wanting to be able to do it, I would love to be fill in the blank. of something completely, unrealistic. It's not realistic for me to help all sentient beings. It's not realistic for me to fulfill all their needs. I haven't fulfilled my needs. I'm in the prison of cyclic existence. I have the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience. I'm laying on the ground next to someone saying, I will help you up in this case. I'm saying, I'm in a pit with you and let me try to yank you out of it. Well, who isn't in the pit? Who's the only being who's a reliable guide? Who's the one who transformed into a reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings? The teacher, Sugata, and protector. To you, I make prostrations. This is where that homage line of Dignaga's verse of homage to Buddha Shakyamuni goes, that Dharmakirti wrote an entire chapter about to explain. Hundreds of verses to explain. This transformation, this true teacher. We say, that's who I must become. I have to transform into the reliable guide. Why? Motivated by altruism, motivated by the sixth step to benefit sentient beings. Look at Dignaga's quote and look at the 7-point cause and effect. Motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings. The teacher, Sugata, there was a motivation to benefit sentient beings. So a transformation took place through this bodhicitta, through the Teata Om Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisoha, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of no more learning. Transformation took place because of altruism. If you have an extraordinary attitude, it's going to pivot you into this place where you say, I must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So this is the meditation. And we're not going to go through the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice today. We'll do that another time as a buildup to show how then, if you get this kind of type of mind that feels so motivated to work for others because you've used reasoning and analysis to prove to yourself that this is the only way to go, then you bring all sentient beings, bring the hell beings, hungry ghosts, animal beings, humans, demigods, and gods here to be your guest, to be able to listen to the teachings, to be able to have the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. So now imagine that every single sentient being is here around you. You don't have any bias. You haven't left any single being out. It's very powerful if you can do this. If you can bring beings that you find immensely difficult into this practice, you will find them to become less difficult in your life. Fact. Somehow or another, you will find them to become less difficult in your life. Now we'll get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. Imagine that you're leading all sentient beings in this posture. It says one of the great qualities of this posture is it's kind of admirable by others. It's something that, kind of encourages others. It's a very special posture. The 7-point Vairakana posture you get into, and it aligns your body in such a way and allows your mind to have the best possible chance because of the aligning of the channels in the blood and flowing properly and the winds and everything to get into the clearest kind of place possible. It's not a fix-all, but it gives it it's a physical posture that allows for a kind of a physical basis to give the mind that rides all through the physical basis a shot at calming down and getting stable to a place where it will need to be eventually, like, as stable as, I don't know, a diamond or something, like so stable that it's immovable off an object, because you want to eventually be able to get it to be immovable off the object of emptiness. And if your mind is moving off the object, you will never, ever, ever cut the root of cyclic existence. You will only experience more and more samsara, no matter how much meditation you do, no matter how much calm down your mind seems to get and how much of a nice person you seem to become. If you don't get this calm mind that then unites with a very wise mind, that then gets to the point where conceptuality starts to diminish to, generic images and conceptuality starts to get to the point where it's so subtle that it's barely there. And then a yogic direct perception sees emptiness. That has to happen from a very calm mind, and that's united with a special insight that has a carrier over of this very clear generic image of the correct object of negation, which is inherent existence. So with that being said, we're in the 7-point Vairocana posture. We've gone over this many times. I can teach this again in the future, but I know that I've given quite a bit of talk already. So let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. Imagine that all sentient beings get into this posture with you. And just remember to keep the back straight. That's such an important part of meditation as possible, and not have your eyes closed. Having your eyes slightly open, kind of pointed downward at your nose. So these are just two really important things. Don't close your eyes. It reminds you of sleeping. You can get dull very, very easily. Don't have your eyes too open. It's just too much stimulation. Make sure your back's straight. And then look into the other points of the 7-point Vairocana posture if you're not familiar with this and don't use this in your daily meditation practice. And if you don't use this, I encourage you to just for a month, sit down for 5 minutes using this posture, and take a couple minutes to do this breathing meditation, take a couple minutes to look at a great text of some sort, and kind of think about whatever it is you read, and I think that it'll change your life, and you'll start to see the benefit of it right away, and you'll see that posture is super, super helpful. So you have all sentient beings here. Everybody's in the 7-point Vairocana posture, and we're going to begin to do a fixed meditation that we've done many times before. We're going to imagine, first of all, we're going to breathe in through our nose. So all this meditation is going to be done through breathing in and out through our nose. We won't be breathing in and out through our mouth. Obviously, if you have a cold or something and that inhibits you from only breathing in and out of your nose, you make a modification. There are no set rules. Nobody's going to get in trouble. A lot of times we get into Buddhism and it's, there's this you feel like there's a judgment committee or something. You do the best you can and you work with what you have and you try to change your mind. You try to make your mind better than it was yesterday. That's Buddhism. That's all that we can do. So begin by breathing in and filling your lungs and diaphragm all the way, and then exhaling and then counting 1. Now, when I say filling the lungs and the diaphragm, what does this mean? It means that when you inhale, I know that Priscilla's here. She's a singer, so she knows this. She knows that when you inhale, your stomach goes out. And when you exhale, your stomach goes in, and you should be collapsing out all of the air. So you should be, you want to make your lungs be able to get as big as possible, to be at as much oxygen in as possible. And the way that you can do that is by expanding your stomach and by, allowing a more full amount of air to, be brought into the lungs. So there's probably a much better way to explain this. It's in terms of filling the diaphragm and lungs. So you're filling the lungs and then you feel the stomach start to push out. And then when you exhale, your stomach should go in and then release the air from the diaphragm and the lungs. And then you're going to repeat that. So when you inhale, you fill, so your stomach should be out. It's usually counterintuitive. And then exhale, stomach goes in. Okay. After you exhale, count 1. And then inhale, exhale, count 2. So this is going to be the one of the focal objects. We're going to have that, and also Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation, about an arm length away, about the size of our thumb, just beautiful and radiant, but in a fixed position. So you're just going to imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is just in the space in front of you. The image of Buddha Shakyamuni is in the space in front of you, as best as you can do it. And when you begin trying to get calm abiding, great masters, and if you've tried, it can start to out as almost like just an image of like the outline or a warm light that Lama Tsongkhapa says in the beginning, don't obsess about getting every single detail right. As you get better and better, the details will fill in if your mind knows what that picture looks like. So it says that, you spend the whole time fixing the picture. You're not fixing the picture, isn't fixed meditation. So you get it to the best place that it can get, and then slam your mind on it. You just sit it on, whatever that is, to the best of your ability. And don't do it for long periods of time in the beginning. So we're going to be doing this multitasking, breathing in, breathing out, one, while the whole time trying to hold this image of Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation. And if that's too much, if that's just like, okay, that's just way out there, I'm like, had a really stressful day at work and I've got 1,000 things going on in my mind and I just need to shut it down. The Buddha said, if you have a huge amount of conceptuality, focus on the breath and just focus on the breath. So there is no one medicine for everyone. We have to look at our minds and we have to know what the Buddha taught. And then we have to kind of open up the medicine cabinet of the medicines that the Buddha taught and then look at the one labeled for the problem we're having. So if we're having a lot of problems with conceptuality, we take the medicine of focusing on the breath. So these are just some instructions you'll find in the Lam Rim that have been passed down to me. And that's my main goal, is just to pass down to you tricks and techniques and things that I've been able to pull from this teaching after the last almost 30 years now, because of the kindness of these incredible lamas that I've been in contact with. Okay. So we know that what we're going to focus on, and we're going to do it for maybe 30 seconds or so, just to try to get our minds calmed down, and then just kind of follow me through the rest of the instruction. Okay, so begin. Now imagine that the image of Buddha Shakyamuni that you've been visualizing has been containing the entire merit field. Now imagine that the merit field begins to fill the space in front of you, and that you and all sentient beings are witnessing the complete loving attitudes of the merit field, looking into our eyes with complete love and compassion, as if they're right here in front of us. Just thinking about these beings like Khyentse Geshe Wandak and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and what it's like to be in their presence, and the love that you feel and the lack of judgment that you feel. Just think about that, and think about they're in this room with us right now, and they're looking on us with immense loving kindness. They're looking into our eyes, and they're just so delighted that we're here. We're doing something for the first time that really, really matters. We've had so many lives where these incredibly enlightened beings have been watching us engage in the most foul behavior and engaged in the 10 non-virtues as if those were the ways to behave and the only ways to behave. And just right now, these enlightened beings see us here engaging in exactly what they come to the world to try to show us how to do. So imagine that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is there on a very strong throne supported by 8 snow lions. Buddha Shakyamuni was containing all these holy beings. Imagining Khyentse Geshe Wandak is there. Geshe Lobsang Gompo Demalocha Rinpoche. Imagining Khyentse Lobsang Gyatso is there. Imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu, Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin, Jeffrey Hopkins, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all of these incredible holy beings who've been so kind to pass this Dharma down to us, who are holding on to these lineages of these incredible beings that have been completely passing pure teachings down from teacher to student, all the way from Buddha Shakyamuni to us. We're so fortunate. Imagining now the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya Sangha and Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha. Imagining the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Shanti Deva and Chandrakirti and Baba Vega and Chandrarashita and Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha, imagining all these holy beings, the lineage of blessings passed down from Lord Vajradhara to Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Jetsun Marpa, Jetsun Milarepa, Gampopa, all these holy beings. Imagine Atisha is right there in front of you, teaching Drone Tompa, this incredible Lam Rim. This incredible teaching on the beings for three capacities. Imagine that Lord Atisha is saying to Drone Tompa right now, understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. This incredible stanza, Kensar Geshe Wandak, drilled into our minds, imagining that Lord Atisha is teaching this to Drone Tompa, passing down to the three old Kadampa lineages, imagining the holy beings of the Nyingma Sacha, Kaju, and Galupa, Padmasambhava, Sakya Pandita, Sakya Randawa, imagining the Karmapas, imagining Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtubje and Jelsubje and Panchen Son Andrapa, imagining Jayan Sheba, Janja Rupi Dorje, Gonja Jimmy Wambo, the Goncheng Ngao Andrapa, all these incredible beings, the Panchen Lojan Yeshe, Panchen the Lozan Chuji Jetson, imagining Pabunko Rinpoche, all these holy beings, the seventh Dalai Lama. We've been so affected by these beings who are textbook writers and who were great yogis. Imagine they're here in the space in front of us, the beings of the highest yoga tantra, action, performance tantra, and action tantra. All the 35 Buddhas and all the protector deities are here in front of you. We're so fortunate. This is our spiritual family. We're so fortunate to hear these names. I say these names so that I leave the imprint in my mind to be able to connect with these beings' text. I say these names so that leave the imprints in your mind to be able to connect with these beings' text. Many of you are greater scholars than myself who will listen to this, and you are even more affected and have more of a relationship with these incredible Nalanda Pandits. So when I say their names, it means even more to you. So create this connection where you start to see this inseparability of your mind and the Lama's mind, and just really pay homage to this knowledge that you will gain through the power of the kindness of being taught the power of truth by the Buddhas and these kind beings in our world, like the Bodhisattvas that are here among us, trying to help the best they can. Now we'll recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. As I said, I can't screen share, and I also I can't screen share. So I'll just recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. But the most important thing for us to remember, tonight's like recap. I think you get it. The most important thing for us to remember is that the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge has an explicit teaching on the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena. There is nothing left over when we look at anything that could possibly have intrinsic existence in this sutra. Nothing has any kind of defining characteristics that establish it intrinsically. Nothing is independently established without the power. Everything comes through the power of the subject. So here we can't find anything that has any kind of intrinsic nature or anything that can be found within the object itself that it possesses to have a true self, a truly existent self, and the self. And when we look at the divisions of things that could possibly we look at the self of person and the self of phenomena. So person and everything else that isn't person. And when we look at all of those things in the universe, we find that none of them inherently exist because they dependently originate. They're merely designated by a thought. Independence upon a collection. That's it. They're designated. They're merely designated. There isn't anything from the side of the object that can be found that is the referent of this label, the true referent of the label. So this is something that we look into, and then implicitly, this sutra teaches the 5 paths, the Bodhisattva paths. So we see that this is the condensed most condensed version of the 100,000 verse, 20,000 verse, 8,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And well, not the most condensed, because the letter A is the most condensed sutra, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Long, another story for another time. But yes, the mantra in here, the one important thing that we should all know when we say Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha, this is referring to the 5 Mahayana paths. Teata Om. Om, we can look at, there's 3 syllables there, Auma, and we can look at that as body, speech, and mind. We can look at it as the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, that's transformed into Bodhisoha, transformed by the 5 paths. Or we look at it as our mind having to go through a transformation through the 5 paths to Buddhahood. So here we have an impure body, speech, and mind when we are in the beginning of the mantra. And then eventually, when we go through all of these stages of the path, our impure body, speech, and mind is transformed into the pure body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. So we look at this mantra as a complete path to enlightenment, and that path to enlightenment is empty of inherent existence. So the first gate refers to the path of accumulation. Path of accumulation has 3 stages. The second gate refers to the path of preparation. The path of preparation has 4 stages. Paragate refers to the path of seeing. Path of seeing, we find uninterrupted paths, and the path of release. So that's Paragate. Parasamgate refers to the path of meditation. Here we find all of the 10 bodhisattva grounds gone through. You land on the first bodhisattva ground at Paragate, at the path of seeing, but then you're still on the first bodhisattva ground when you get to the path of meditation, and you traverse all 10 bodhisattva grounds, the 7 impure and 8 pure grounds during the path of meditation, and then 1 during that path gets rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, and gets to the point of being able to view ultimate and conventional truth simultaneously and be able to help all sentient beings to fulfill their needs, because your needs have all been completely fulfilled. And remember that. You can do it because your needs are completely fulfilled. You're omniscient, so you then fulfill all other sentient beings' needs, because you have love and compassion, omniscience, and power, and you have no choice because of the bodhisattva path but to help them. You think, oh, the Buddha can do whatever he or she wants. No, the Buddha only can help, because the bodhisattva path laid the groundwork to go from help to help to help, bliss to bliss to bliss, no suffering to no suffering to no suffering to no suffering. So gate, accumulation. Gate, path of preparation. Paragate, path of seeing. Parasamgate, path of meditation. Bodhisoha, enlightenment, Buddhahood. So this is our Om, our body, speech, and mind, our Auma, going through pathways where we generate bodhicitta and then have inferential valid cognition of emptiness, see emptiness directly, see it again and again and again and again and again directly, and then eventually become Buddhas. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together the great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, dhatu of dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Aga samara deshandara samara dia da ongati gati paragati parasangati buddhizo papa gonjoji gai dimbidoji shel obodoji mebodoji shewadoji jagi baji metubeje danji shedin gori zoha kerin donjaje shewa da medun bejan dandra wa dan dumba donji bonzon zonjoji dashi de jandan da de lesho. Now we'll make a mandala offering as a request for teaching. Imagine you're offering a perfect, beautiful, perfect paradise to the merit field, and that everyone in that perfect paradise is enjoying it and just so happy. And so this is what the Buddhas are here. The Buddhas aren't here to make us miserable. The Buddhas want to show us how to really be happy, how to really be free from suffering forever, and how to have bliss that never ends. So that's what the Buddhas want from us. So imagine that we're offering our practice, because the Buddhas want us to have bliss, and our practice is the only way that we're going to get it. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje Jadanja Jananda, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Juji Bezonanje, Drala Benje Sanje Jubasho, Sanje Jadanja Jananda, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Juji Bezonanje, Drala Benje Sanje Jubasho, Sanje Jadanja Jananda, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Juji Bezonanje, Drala Benje Sanje Jubasho. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. So wonderful to be back talking about the Lam Rim. We won't get to talk about too much of it tonight, but we're so fortunate that we had Khenso Geshe Wandak in our lives, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo, who was Khenso Geshe Wandak's student, who came and was so clear and concise about some of the logic teachings and so forth with me. And I just rejoiced in the fact that I've been able to just have a tiniest bit of understanding because of the kindness of these perfect gurus, because of the kindness of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because of the kindness of Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga, who are just spending so much time to make sure that their students' minds evolve and continue to evolve and don't stagnate in evolution, because it is sooner or later we have to engage in these pathways. And they all lead to Buddhahood. When we look at the teachings for beings of three capacities, we see that everyone will become a Buddha. When we see the lamp for the path to enlightenment, Atisha is talking about Buddhahood. So the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, yes, there is a scope of practitioner there, we could say, that is wishing to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. And in the medium scope, there's a scope of practitioner there that is wishing to be free from the all of the realms of cyclic existence. And in the great scope, there's a practitioner there who wants to become a complete Buddha. But we call them the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, and the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, because the person of medium capacity needs the teachings of small capacity, and the person of great capacity needs the teachings of small and medium capacity. If you haven't realized the teachings of small capacity, realizing the teachings of medium capacity is really impossible. And if you haven't realized the teachings of medium capacity, it means that you don't have renunciation. And if you don't have renunciation, a desire to emerge from cyclic existence, then there's no way that you can get bodhicitta. And that's the entrance into the Mahayana. That's the entrance into the great scope. That's the entrance into the teachings for beings of great capacity. So you have to have these common practices, the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, in order to realize the teachings for beings of great capacity. Because without renunciation, without day and night wanting to get out of cyclic existence, you will never dream of helping others in the kind of way and enduring the hardships that you'll have to in order to become a Buddha. Because you won't see there's a problem even for yourself. You'll see somebody, if you don't understand the three types of suffering and you don't understand the suffering of change, you'll think that just another $20,000 or $100,000 is all you need, and then you'll be free from all of your suffering. And you'll see someone drive by in a Lamborghini and say they're free from suffering because you don't understand the suffering of change. You don't understand it's the bait that keeps you in cyclic existence that's preloaded with suffering. It will change into something that's just painful. That thing driving down the road, the aging, all of all of these composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are the nature of suffering. All phenomena are the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Nirvana is peace. So if we can figure out these things are empty and selfless, then we can achieve this peaceful nirvana that's free from the contaminated karmas that are suffering. It's so clear, and we're so fortunate that we've been given such a concise path passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni through the Nalanda tradition that lands right in our lap. Lord Atisha was so kind to us, and Lama Tsongkhapa is so kind. Lord Atisha to show us that no teachings are contradictory, and that everything's an instruction to practice, and that we can easily understand what the intent of the Buddha is if we know how to see the teachings for beings of three capacities, and then we'll never abandon the Dharma if we truly understand this. So let's look at this text real quick. I know it's getting late, and I was going to try to keep it an hour, but that's not going to happen. I'm going to do an hour and a half. Sorry if I told anybody that, like I was really sure. I don't think anybody would have believed me anyway. So anyway, let's look at the source of all my good. So we've been going over this for quite some time, and where we left off was in the section of union of calm abiding and special insight. But what I'd like to do tonight is we're just going to kind of go through it, and we'll look at, how we're kind of supposed to frame this text out. And then we'll do it next week, a little bit more of a taste into it deeper, with less of an intro. And then we'll get back to where we left off, teaching shamatha, because we got into like the preconditions for getting shamatha and calm abiding, and we got into objects of observation and in ways that we can start to work with our mind and make it be able to get more fixed. So we'll get back to that, but I want to go through this now. So the source of all my good encompasses all of the teachings of Lord Buddha. We can say within it, we find all of the teachings that Lama Tsongkhapa gave in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment contained in this text, all the teachings that Lama Tsongkhapa gave in the great treatise on the stage of the tantric path to enlightenment. And then we could argue, we look at all of Lama Tsongkhapa's other beautiful texts, like Illuminating the Intent. We look at, the ocean of wisdom, ocean of reasoning. We look at the golden rosary. We could say it's all contained within here, because you really, all of those other texts, when we look at the explanation of emptiness and the various tenet systems and the staircase to understanding, if we don't understand the varying levels of emptiness and understanding first emptiness of a permanent, unitary, independent self of person, emptiness of an autonomous, substantial reality of person, emptiness of externality of the mind-only school, emptiness of true existence while still keeping inherent existence of the Madhyamaka Svatantrika school, and then emptiness of inherent existence altogether, subjectivity only while having no inherent existence and externality. And that's the real trick. And without being able to go up that staircase, you'll never get to this final view that you must have to practice Tantra and to do all of these fancy things. Even to get to a Hinayana Nirvana, you have to have the Prasangika view. It's proven in so many texts. And then once you can't just see the emptiness of an autonomous, substantial self of person, or of a permanent emptiness of a permanent, unitary, independent self of person, even with a yogic direct perception, and get anywhere in terms of the liberating path, cutting the root of the afflictions, because that is not the realization of emptiness. We have to learn what that is. So this text, the source of all my good, that has everything in it, Pabunka Rinpoche says we can divide into 4 specific categories. The first category is the very root of the path is the teacher. How to take one to him or her and serve them properly. So here, this first section, Pabunka Rinpoche says, deals with that. And that's really the first stanza of the text. And I'll point them out as we go. The second section deals with how to train your mind once you've taken on a Lama. So we'll point out what that means when we get to it. How to train your mind in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, basically, up to the great capacity, both the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. So then, and the next is a request so that you can attain all favorable conditions for succeeding in the path, and cut out every circumstances that can prevent you from success. And then the final part is a prayer that in all your future lives, you're taken care of by a teacher, and that you can gain the strength to reach the final goal of all the levels and paths and become Vajradhara, become Buddha. So it's really beautiful how Pabunka Rinpoche says, Lama Tsongkhapa lays this out, how Pabunka explains the layout, and then let's see. So the source of all my good by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Yunten Chidruma. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. So here, this fulfills the first category of the very root of the path, is the teacher, that Pabunka Rinpoche says. Now, a lot of the next stanzas, the next, 11. Anyway, the next stanzas, I'll tell you when we get to the break point. Yeah, 11 stanzas deal with the teachings for beings of small, medium, and great capacity. And kind of a pre-step with this next stanza of an urging of one to take advantage of this life of leisure and opportunity that we have, that enables us to do what? Practice the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. So when it says take its essence night and day, this is what Tsongkhapa is talking about. He's saying taking its essence would be, then in the Lam Rinpoche, after leisure and opportunity, Tsongkhapa kind of gives out the brochures. Oh, this is a small scope, you could do that, or this is a medium scope. You could be free from lower realms. You could be free from samsara. You could become a Buddha. So practicing those things which make those goals happen are taking the essence of this life. So this stanza encourages you to then engage in practice. Don't throw this life away. You got it. It's hard to get, and it's very valuable. Why? Why is it valuable? Because you can achieve these goals. How do you take its essence? By engaging in the practices that allow you to achieve those goals. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. Now we begin with the teachings. In this case, if it's for one practitioner, a person like me, to go from where I am, very deluded, full of afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, to the state of Buddhahood. So we start at the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, because I will need these teachings to get to the medium scope. I will need the medium and small scope teachings to achieve the great scope. I will need the great scope to become a Buddha, because you can't become a Buddha without the Mahayana. Small scope. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Now we move on to the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, the medium scope, where we start to recognize that, yes, I don't want to be born in the lower realms of cyclic existence, but the higher realms of cyclic existence are a problem too. All of cyclic existence is a prison. I'm just moving from one prison to another prison to another prison, and it depends. Some prisons are nicer than other prisons. Some prison guards are nicer than other prison guards, but it's all a prison, and you realize this in the medium scope. Teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. So now in this scope, the medium scope, you realize the downfalls of cyclic existence. You've identified in the Four Noble Truths what the truth of suffering is. We've identified suffering, the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, the 3 sufferings for yourself, and you've just have a disgust. You want to get out of those sufferings because you know they're no good. And you've known what the origin is that you need to abandon, and you know what a cessation would be like to be achieved, a freedom from the afflictive obstructions, a nirvana, and you know that there's a path that you have to rely upon. So you have this realization for yourself at this point, and you have a desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence, and that desire to emerge now turns towards other sentient beings into compassion, and wanting them also to be free from those same 3 types of suffering that you want to be free from, because you recognize that all beings are equally important in the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude. And you've generated a desire to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings through the 7-point cause and effect for realizing bodhicitta and equalizing exchanging self with others. So here we get into the teachings shared in common with beings of great capacity, and we get into the aspiring bodhicitta. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of the suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task for freeing them all. Now engaged bodhicitta. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the bodhisattva's vows. So if I don't train in the ethics of abandoning non-virtue, if I don't engage in the ethics of gathering virtues, if I don't engage in the ethics of working for sentient beings, I cannot become a Buddha. So those are the 3 moralities. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. That's where we've left off. We're talking about calm abiding, getting the mind super calm, special insight, getting this mind as smart as it can become. And grant, so then once you have all of these common pathways practiced, Lama Tsongkhapa says, then you're a proper vessel for Tantrayana. If you have the ethics that are stainless, and you have this bodhicitta that's so clear, and you understand emptiness very, very well, according to the sutra vehicle, perfection vehicle, now you're a worthy vessel of Tantrayana. Grant that once I've practiced well, the paths shared, here's that word again, in common with, shared, teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, are shared with Tantrayana. Our medium scope shared with Tantrayana. Parshin vehicle, perfection vehicle, shared with Tantrayana. So we have to understand this and not abandon the lower teachings, and understand the 10 non-virtues have to be abandoned if we want to practice highest yoga tantra. Once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that's worthy, I've purified, I understand the teachings, I'm a bodhicitta understanding, I'm really a vessel for Tantrayana. I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. And then it's so clear here. Lama Tsongkhapa is like, I don't know if you're listening about the previous paths that I taught you, but you don't disregard them. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, you enter into Tantrayana through an initiation. That's the door into Tantrayana. Bodhicitta is the door into Mahayana. So when I've entered thus, once I've taken initiation, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Individual liberation vows, bodhisattva vows, and tantric vows, if it's in the highest yoga tantra. Grant me then to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. So this concludes this section. Pabunka Rinpoche says how you train once you've taken a Lama. And this next stanza deals with making a request that you can attain all favorable conditions for succeeding in the path and remove all bad circumstances. Bless me to grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the reign of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. And okay, so that's the third category of Pabunka's commentary says. And then the fourth category is a prayer that in your future lives, you're always taken care of by a Lama. May I always be taken care of by Kensur Geshe Wandak. May I always be taken care of by Geshe Lobsang Gompa, Geshe Dorje Damdu, whoever you consider root Lama. And you can have more than one you consider so connected to. May I always be connected to. And we don't know. Maybe it's just one being. Emanation's weird. So may I never be separated from these beings who will teach me the truth of suchness. And then may I succeed in becoming who they've been able to become by practicing the teaching Shirankan with beings of small and medium capacity and practice of great capacity. Make sense? This is the integrated path. This is how you make your mind like the Lam Rim and work on the Lam Rim. It isn't just like you read it and then you come back next week and read it. Every day you think about this and you think about, I have this leisure and opportunity, but I'm going to die. What do I do about this time that I have on this earth? I take the essence of this life. I have this leisure and opportunity. What's that mean? I can practice Dharma. I can not have to go to the lower realms. I can be free from samsara altogether and never have to suffer again. I can become a Buddha and help everyone I love to never have to suffer again. Wow, that's amazing. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then the place quickly, the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. And the Bodhisattva practices Tantrayana because he or she cannot stand how long it's taking to really fulfill all sentient beings' needs. That's the motivation for Tantrayana, nothing else. Not because it's fancy and it's cool and it's sexy. It's the motivation is I can't bear the thought of having to not be qualified any longer than I have to be. Okay, so that concludes tonight's discussion. I'll just do the simple concluding prayers because it's been a little long, I'll have all of my act together completely next week. I'm sorry about the introductory prayer about inviting all the beings. I didn't have the other paper, but I'm sure that there's no one judging, but I still bring that with me, and we have to be so careful with that and just do the best we can and not get discouraged and not feel like, oh my gosh, I've done this terrible thing. And because we have such a tendency to get guilt going, and guilt is just self-cherishing attitude. I'm the worst is a form of pride. I'm the king of the worst, or I'm the king of the best. It's all pride. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. And when it says and this is the only thing I'm going to explain, when it says if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner, the remedy to that attachment to this life is the small scope, is abandoning attachment to this life, looking towards future lives. And Atisha, everyone says it doesn't become Dharma until it's focused at future lives. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayers of thanksgiving for this teaching, thanking the entire merit field for trickling this teaching down to whatever I said. Hopefully I didn't make too many errors it's trickled down because it hasn't trickled down in any way but perfect to me. So any mistakes I made was my messy mind. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes I've made, may they be purified by the Vajrasattva mantra, imagining Vajrasattva in the space in front of you, inseparable from Khensa Geshe Wandak or whoever your root lama is, and that light rays and nectars are purifying your body, speech, and mind. White light rays and nectars purifying your body with the symbols of Om. Red light rays and nectars purifying your speech with the symbols of Ah. And blue light rays and nectars purifying your mind with the symbol of Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. And imagining anything that I've maybe said or incorrectly, or maybe you you're going to twist around in your mind. Allow that to be purified so that the pure Dharma is sitting in your mind. Om benza sata samayamani balaya benza sata zainawadi dadida meva zulgai meva subgai meva anurag meva savazidi meva rajazavagama suchame kitam shriam guru hum ha ho bhagavan sarva tatagata benza mami mukha benza bhava mahasamaya sapa ahom ve. May we always be protected by Pada Lama. Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jikata Jamo, Rama, Jadaja Junjo, Hong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Junjo Kalarajamo, Rama, Jadaja Junjo, Hong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jikata Jamo, Rama, Jadaja Junjo, Hong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jikata Jamo, Jadaja Junjo, Hong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jikata Jamo, Jadaja Junjo, Hong Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jikata Jamo. Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Dunjo, Kalarajamo, Rama, Jadaja Dunjo, Rulu, Hong Jong. Any obstacles anyone's having to meeting with the Dharma, may they be removed by the power of the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hari Griva Garuda Om Ve. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. And now a prayer of supplication to Nangyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, written a couple years ago on the anniversary of his passing, as an offering and a supplication to him by me. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music, purified by Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now the sound is stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll get slowed down next time. I just wanted to get some things out that I wanted to talk about tonight. And I really appreciate all of you. And please put these teachings into practice. And I hope your mind is virtuous right now. And imagine that from wherever you are, from wherever you're sitting, that you make this commitment that I'm going to engage in these practices to the best of my ability, the best I can do. We're all going to make mistakes. No one is perfect but the Buddha. But do the best you can to integrate these teachings into your lives, because we owe it to our teachers. Thank you. See you. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, hey, touch the link, everybody. So glad to see all of you. Okay. Oh, I got to end the meeting. Bye. See you next time.